Commander Yuna stared at the massive screen on the wall. Static. Nothing but static. 3 days had passed since the last message from Captain Taeyang and his crew. 3 long days of silence that made her stomach twist with worry. The mission to Kepler 442b had taken 12 years to plan. It cost more money than most countries had in their entire budgets. 47 people had climbed into the starship Resilience and traveled through space for 5 years, while sleeping in special freezing pods. They were humanity's best hope to reach a new world, a planet that could support human life. Now they were just gone. No messages, no signals, nothing. Yuna walked through the control center. Dozens of people sat at their stations watching screens, checking data, hoping for something. Anything. The room felt heavy with fear and confusion. Some people whispered to each other. Others just stared at their monitors with tired eyes. "Commander, we've checked everything 3 times, said Hyun, the communications chief. He looked exhausted. "All our equipment is working perfectly. The satellites are fine. The relay stations are operational. If they're trying to send a message, we should receive it." "Keep checking," Yuna said quietly. She knew it wasn't the equipment. Something had happened on that distant planet, something that stopped Taeyang from contacting them. Admiral Doyen entered the room with heavy footsteps. He was a large man with silver hair and a face carved from stone. He had commanded fleets, fought in the resource wars, and never backed down from a fight. But even he looked worried now. "Commander Yuna, we need to talk," he said. "The Council is demanding answers. The news media is reporting wild stories. Some people think the whole mission was fake. Others think aliens destroyed the ship." Yuna nodded and followed him to a private office. Inside, Dr. Nari was waiting. She was Taeyang's younger sister, a brilliant scientist who studied alien life. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice stayed steady. "My brother would never break protocol," Nari said firmly. "He followed every rule, every procedure. If he went silent, there's a reason." "What kind of reason?" Doyen asked. "What could stop an entire expedition from sending even a simple signal?" "I don't know," Nari admitted. "But Taeyang was careful, smart. He wouldn't take unnecessary risks." Yuna sat down at the desk. She pulled up the last transmission on her computer. She had watched it 100 times already. Taeyang's face appeared on the screen, smiling slightly. "Surface landing successful," his recorded voice said. "The planet is beautiful. Better than we hoped. Atmosphere is breathable. Water sources everywhere. We're beginning base construction protocols. Taeyang out, normal, routine. Nothing seemed wrong. But there was something Yuna hadn't told anyone yet. Something that made her chest feel tight with fear and excitement. "There was another transmission," she said quietly, 1 second after the main message ended. "It was encrypted with the highest security code. Only I can decode it." Doyen leaned forward. "What did it say?" Yuna pressed a button. 2 words appeared on the screen. "Not alone." The room went silent. Those 2 words changed everything. "Not alone," Nari repeated slowly. "Does that mean they found something? Someone?" "I don't know," Yuna said. "But Taeyang used an emergency code. He wanted only me to see this message. He was warning us about something." Doyun stood up and paced the small office. "We need to send a rescue mission now." "The nearest ship that could make the journey is the Aurora," Yuna said. "It would take 3 years to reach Kepler 442b, 3 years before we could even see what happened." "Then we start now," Doyen insisted. "We can't abandon them." "I'm not suggesting we abandon them," Yuna replied. "But we need to think carefully. What if whatever made them go silent could affect the rescue team too?" Outside the office, protests had begun. Thousands of people gathered outside the Earth Command building. Some held signs demanding the truth. Others claimed the government was lying about the mission. Television news showed angry crowds in cities across the planet. The Resilience mission had captured humanity's imagination. Everyone knew the names of the crew members. Children learned about them in school. They were heroes, pioneers, the first humans to truly reach for the stars and touch another world. Now those heroes were silent, and the world demanded answers that nobody had. Yuna returned to the main control room. She looked at the timeline on the big screen. 5 years of travel, 72 hours of silence. In the grand scale of space, 72 hours was nothing. But for the people waiting on Earth, every hour felt like torture. "Commander," said Hyun suddenly, "I'm detecting something. It's faint, but there's a signal pattern. Not voice or video, but data. Lots of data. Everyone in the room rushed to their stations. Yuna felt her heart beating fast. Where is it coming from? She demanded. Kepler 442b, Hyun said, his fingers dancing across his keyboard. But it's strange. The signal keeps starting and stopping, like something is blocking it. Can you clean it up? Make it clearer? I'm trying, but wait. Commander, this is weird. The data includes coordinates. Specific coordinates on the planet's surface. Nari pushed forward to look at the screen. Those coordinates are underground. Deep underground. At least 2 kilometers below the surface. How is that possible? Doyun asked. They were supposed to build their base on the surface. Why would they go underground? Nobody had an answer. For the next 6 hours, the team worked to decode the broken signal. Piece by piece, fragments of information came through. Scans of strange structures, energy readings that made no sense according to known physics, and images, blurry images of something that definitely wasn't natural. The images showed corridors carved from unknown materials, vast chambers that glowed with their own light, technology that looked millions of years old but still worked, and in one image, barely visible, was a figure in a spacesuit, human, alive. They found something, Nari whispered. My brother found something incredible. Yuna studied the images carefully. Her training told her to be cautious, to gather more information, to wait for clear facts. But her instincts screamed that something huge had happened on that distant planet, something that would change everything for humanity. Get the Aurora ready, she told Doyun. Start preparing the rescue mission, but keep it quiet for now. What are you going to tell the public? He asked. Yuna looked at the screen showing the crowds outside, the news reports, the worried faces of people across the world. She thought about Taeyang and his crew, somewhere on an alien world, silent but possibly alive. She thought about those 2 words. Not alone. I'm going to tell them the truth, she said finally. That we lost contact, but we're working to restore it. That we believe the crew is alive, and that we won't abandon them. And the rest? Nari asked quietly. The underground structures? The impossible technology? That, Yuna said. We keep to ourselves until we understand what we're dealing with. As night fell over Earth Command, Yuna remained at her post. The broken signals kept coming, fragments of a story she couldn't yet understand. Somewhere across the vast distance of space, Captain Taeyang and his crew were trying to tell them something important. She just hoped they would survive long enough to hear the full message. The stars outside the window seemed colder than usual, more distant, and somewhere among them, on a planet circling an alien sun, humanity's future was being decided by 47 brave souls who had chosen to leap into the unknown. Whatever they had found, whatever had made them go silent, Yuna knew one thing with certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. Captain Taeyang stood on the surface of Kepler 442b and felt like he was dreaming. 2 suns hung in the purple sky, casting red and orange light across a landscape that looked nothing like Earth yet somehow felt familiar. The air was clean and fresh. Strange plants with crystal-like leaves grew everywhere, catching the double sunlight and throwing rainbow colors across the ground. Captain, all systems show green, reported Hanul, the chief engineer. He stood near the Resilience, checking readings on his tablet. The ship is secure. Power levels are good. We can start unloading the construction equipment. Good work, Taeyang said. He watched his crew moving around the landing site with careful excitement. They had trained for years for this moment, but training could never really prepare someone for standing on an alien world. Dr. Suji knelt beside a patch of the crystal plants, taking samples with steady hands. She was the expedition's main scientist, studying everything from soil to possible alien life. Her eyes were wide with wonder. These plants use a different kind of photosynthesis, she called out. The crystal structure converts light more efficiently than anything on Earth. If we could understand this, we could revolutionize solar power back home. Pilot Jiwon walked the perimeter of their landing zone, her hand never far from the weapon at her side. She had been a combat pilot in the resource wars, and old habits died hard. The area's clear, Captain. No signs of large animals or immediate threats. Taeyang nodded. Everything was going according to plan. Better than planned, actually. The planet was perfect. The atmospheric readings were excellent. The temperature was comfortable. Water sources were abundant. This world could support a human colony, maybe even a large one. Let's get the base equipment set up, he ordered. I want the communications array operational first. Earth Command needs to know we're safe. The crew worked quickly and efficiently. They had practiced this routine countless times in simulations. Heavy machinery came out of the cargo bay. The frame of the first building started to take shape. Solar panels unfolded and began collecting energy from the twin suns. Medic Minji set up a medical station in a clear area. Everyone remember to stay hydrated, she called out. The gravity here is slightly less than Earth, but you'll still get tired if you push too hard. Communications Officer Yoonji worked on the main transmitter, connecting cables and checking frequencies. Captain, I'm ready to send the first message to Earth. Should I include the initial survey data? Yes, Taeyang said. Tell them everything looks good. We're beginning construction. Standard protocol. Yoonji typed the message and hit send. The signal would take time to reach Earth, bouncing through relay stations across the vast distance of space. But it would get there. Earth Command would know they had succeeded. Then the scanner started beeping. Hanul looked at his tablet, frowned, and checked it again. Captain, I'm getting strange readings. Something is interfering with the ground-penetrating radar. What kind of interference? Taeyang asked, walking over. I don't know. It's like... There's something massive below us. Deep underground. The scanner says the structures extend for kilometers. Taeyang felt his skin prickle. Structures? You mean natural formations? No, sir, Hanul said quietly, showing him the screen. These aren't natural. Look at the patterns. These are regular, geometric, built. The rest of the crew gathered around to see. The scanner showed a three-dimensional map of what lay beneath the surface. Tunnels, chambers, vast halls, all of it 2 kilometers down, hidden under layers of rock and soil. Someone built this, Suji whispered. Someone was here before us. Jiwon's hand moved to her weapon. Are they still here? The life signs scanner shows nothing, Hanul reported. No movement. No heat signatures. Whatever built this, they're not here anymore. Or not active, at least. Taeyang's mind raced. This changed everything. They had found evidence of alien civilization, not just microbes or simple life, but beings who could build massive structures underground. This was the discovery of the millennium, maybe the biggest discovery in human history. We need to investigate, Suji said immediately. Captain, we have to explore those structures. The scientific value alone. We need to report this first, Yoonji interrupted. Earth Command should know before we do anything. Taeyang stood silent, thinking hard. Yoonji was right. Protocol said they should report major discoveries immediately, but he also knew what would happen if he did that. Earth Command would order them to wait. Analysis teams would be assembled. Politicians would argue. It could be months or years before they got permission to explore. And this discovery belonged to his crew. They had traveled 5 years to get here. They deserved to be the first to see what lay below. We'll send a brief message to Earth, he decided. Tell them the landing was successful and we're beginning construction. Nothing about the underground structures yet. We investigate first, then report our findings. Sir, that's against protocol, Yoonji said carefully. I know, Taeyang admitted. But I'm not going to let bureaucrats on Earth steal this moment from us. We'll explore, document everything, and then send a full report. A few days won't matter. Yoonji looked uncomfortable but nodded. She sent the basic message to Earth Command, keeping it simple and routine. The crew prepared for the underground expedition. They gathered lights, scanning equipment, climbing gear, and safety supplies. Hanul found an entrance point where the structures came closest to the surface. Using drilling equipment, they cut through rock and soil until they broke through into a tunnel below. Cool air rushed up from the opening. The lights showed walls made of material nobody recognized. It wasn't metal or stone. It looked smooth like glass but felt warm to the touch. This material is incredible, Hanul said, running his hand along the wall. It's not registering on any of my scanners. It's like it doesn't fully exist in normal space. That's impossible, Jiwon said. A lot of things should be impossible, Suji replied. But here we are. Taeyang led the team down into the tunnel. Their lights cut through darkness that had lasted for who knew how long. Thousands of years, millions. The walls were covered in symbols that might have been writing or decoration. The tunnel sloped down deeper and deeper. They walked for an hour before reaching the first chamber. It was enormous. Their lights couldn't reach the ceiling or the far walls. The chamber stretched away into darkness, filled with strange machines that hummed with quiet power. Lights flickered on ancient control panels. Screens displayed symbols and languages no human had ever seen. This is all still working, Hanul breathed in amazement. After all this time, the technology still functions. Suji approached one of the machines carefully. The energy readings are off the charts. This is generating power using principles we don't understand. 0-point energy, maybe? Or something even more advanced. The crew spread out, documenting everything with cameras and scanners. Every corner revealed new wonders. Technology that should have degraded millennia ago still operated perfectly. Art that showed beings who definitely weren't human. Mathematics carved into walls using symbols that hurt to look at directly. Then they found the door. It stood at the end of the massive chamber, 3 times the height of a human. The material was the same strange, not quite there substance as the walls. But this glowed with soft blue light. Symbols covered its surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. Should we try to open it? Jiwan asked. Before Taiyang could answer, the door opened on its own. Light flooded out from beyond. Not harsh light, but gentle and warm. And with the light came a feeling. A presence. Something was in there. Something that had been waiting. Captain, Yunji said urgently, checking her equipment. Our communications are being blocked. Some kind of field is preventing signals from getting out. Earth Command won't receive anything from us while we're down here. Taiyang looked at the open door. Every instinct told him this was a crucial moment. Whatever lay beyond that door had opened it for them specifically. It had been waiting for someone to arrive. We go forward, he said. Stay together. Document everything. If this gets dangerous, we retreat immediately. The crew moved through the door. The chamber beyond was different from everything they had seen. It felt alive somehow. The walls seemed to breathe. The air hummed with energy. And in the center of the room floated a sphere of pure light. As they watched, the sphere expanded and changed. It formed shapes, symbols, images from Earth mixed with images of alien worlds, mathematics, music, art, language, as if it was reading their minds and showing them things they could understand. Then it spoke. Not with sound, but directly into their thoughts. Inheritors, the voice said. We have waited so long. Come. Let us see if you are worthy. The door behind them closed with a soft click. Taiyang realized with cold certainty that his decision to explore had changed everything. There would be no easy walk back to the surface. No simple report to Earth Command. Whatever happened next would define not just his crew's fate, but possibly the future of all humanity. The sphere pulsed with light, waiting for their response. The sphere of light pulsed brighter, and suddenly the world changed around them. Taiyang felt like he was being pulled apart and put back together. When his vision cleared, he found himself in a different chamber. Smaller. And he wasn't alone. Engineer Hanul and Medic Minji stood beside him, looking equally confused and frightened. The rest of the crew was gone. Captain, what happened? Minji asked, her voice shaking slightly. I don't know, Taiyang admitted. He looked around the new chamber. It was filled with machines that sparked and smoked. Warning lights flashed red across control panels. Something was failing. Something big, a voice echoed in their minds. Not words exactly, but meaning that they somehow understood. Repair the cascade failure. You have limited time. Failure means destruction. Hanul rushed to the nearest console. His hands moved across surfaces that looked nothing like human technology. Captain, this is bad. Really bad. Some kind of energy core is overloading. If it explodes, it could destroy this entire complex. Maybe even crack the planet's crust. Can you fix it? Taiyang asked. I don't even know what I'm looking at, Hanul said desperately. This technology is completely alien. I don't understand the principles, the language, nothing. Minji stood frozen, staring at the machines. She was a medic, not an engineer. What could she possibly do here? Taiyang felt panic rising in his chest but forced it down. Think. They were being tested. That much was clear. But tested for what? Knowledge they didn't have? That made no sense. He closed his eyes and thought about what the sphere had called them. Inheritors. Not students. Not apprentices. Inheritors. As if they were meant to receive something, not learn it from scratch. Hanul, he said quietly, stop trying to understand it with your mind. Try something else. What do you mean? That voice said we're inheritors. Maybe the knowledge is already here somehow. Try touching the console. Really touching it. Focus on what you want it to do, not how it works. Hanno looked skeptical but desperate. He placed both hands flat on the smooth surface of the console. He closed his eyes and focused, not on understanding the alien symbols or physics, but simply on the desire to stop the cascade failure. The console glowed under his hands. Information flooded into his mind. Not words or diagrams, but pure understanding. He suddenly knew what needed to be done. His hands moved across the controls with confidence, making adjustments that felt right even though he couldn't explain why. "It's working," he breathed. "I can feel it. The system is responding to intention, not just commands." Taeyang smiled grimly.
Minji, help him.
"Focus on the medical analogy. This facility is like a body in crisis. What would you do to stabilize a patient?" Minji moved to another console. She thought about triage, about stopping bleeding, about stabilizing vital signs. The console responded to her thoughts, showing her where the worst damage was, where to focus first. Together, the three of them worked. Not as engineers or medics, but as humans who adapted, who learned, who refused to give up. The machines responded. The red lights turned yellow, then green. The dangerous energy readings dropped to safe levels. When the last system stabilized, the chamber dissolved around them. Meanwhile, in another part of the complex, Dr. Suji and pilot Jiwon faced their own trial. They stood in a massive arena. Ancient machines rose from the floor, taking shapes that looked like warriors from a dozen different civilizations. Metal, stone, energy, all of them moving with deadly grace toward the two humans. "I guess we fight," Jiwon said, pulling out her sidearm. She fired at the nearest construct. The bullet passed through it like it wasn't even there. Physical weapons won't work, Suji realized. Look at how they move. They're not solid. They're some kind of hard light projection. The constructs circled them, moving closer. Jiwon's combat training kicked in. She analyzed their movements, looking for patterns, weaknesses, anything she could use. "They're not trying to kill us," she said suddenly. "Look, every attack stops just short. They're testing us." "Testing our ability to fight?" Suji asked, dodging a sweep from a blade of light. "No," Jiwon said. "Testing how we respond to threats. Do we panic? Do we give up? Or do we adapt?" She stopped trying to shoot the constructs and started moving differently. Not aggressive, not defensive, strategic. She led them in circles, making them interfere with each other. She used the environment, ducking behind pillars, leading them into positions where they blocked each other's attacks. Suji caught on. She started predicting their movements based on their behavior patterns. "They repeat sequences every 30 seconds, she called out. "They're following programmed responses, not thinking independently." Together, they turned the fight into a dance. Dodge, move, predict, counter. Not destroying the constructs, but showing they could survive, could think under pressure, could work together without words. The constructs stopped. They bowed somehow and dissolved into light. The chamber changed, and Suji and Jiwon found themselves in a quiet room. In a third location, Communications Officer Yunji stood alone before a massive device that hummed with power. She recognized it immediately from the scans. This was the source of the communication blackout, the quantum field generator that prevented signals from reaching Earth. She could destroy it. One well-placed charge from her equipment would shatter it. Earth Command would receive signals again. Help could be sent, but the voice in her mind asked a question. "Do you trust your leader? Or do you panic and call for rescue?" Yunji stared at the device. Her training said establish communications immediately in any emergency. Protocol demanded it. But Taeyang had made a choice to explore without reporting everything. He had reasons. Good reasons, probably. If she destroyed this device, she might ruin whatever test they were going through. She might cost humanity something incredible. But if she didn't and the crew died down here, their deaths would be on her conscience. She thought about Taeyang. He was a good captain. Fair, smart. He had never made a decision that put the crew at unnecessary risk. He had broken protocol to give them this chance, but only because he believed it was right. Yunji made her choice. She would trust him. Instead of destroying the device, she connected her recording equipment to it. She began documenting everything. Every signal. Every energy reading. Every piece of data about what was happening. When communications were restored, Earth Command would have a complete record. Trust but verify. Document but don't interfere. The device glowed with approval and the room dissolved. All the crew members found themselves back in the central chamber with the sphere of light. They looked at each other, relieved to see everyone alive. They had been separated for what felt like hours, but maybe it had only been minutes. Time felt strange in this place. You have done well, the voice said in their minds. Each trial was designed for your capabilities. Engineer and captain and medic stabilized chaos. Warrior and scientist survived conflict through strategy. Communicator chose trust over fear. You passed the first test. The first test? Hanel asked. How many are there? As many as needed to know your worth, the voice replied. Many species have stood where you stand. Most failed. Fear made them strike out in violence. Greed made them grasp for power without wisdom. Pride made them refuse to learn. The sphere showed them images, ruins in other chambers, the remains of different alien species. 5 others had been tested here before humanity. 5 had failed and their civilizations had crumbled after they left with technology they weren't ready to wield. 1 species passed, the voice continued. They took the knowledge, used it wisely, and ascended beyond physical form. They became like us, creatures of thought and energy, freed from the limits of flesh. Who built all this? Taeyang asked. Who are you? We were called many names in many languages you cannot speak. We were the architects. We built when the universe was young. We created these tests across thousands of worlds, waiting for younger species to rise and find them. Why? Suji asked. What's the purpose? To pass on our legacy, the voice said simply. To ensure the principles we valued survive. We learned that power without responsibility destroys, knowledge without wisdom corrupts, technology without ethics enslaves. So we test, we teach. We select those worthy to inherit what we have built. The sphere pulsed with different colors. You will face more trials. Trials of wisdom, of sacrifice, of choice. Not all your crew will want to continue. Some will fear. Some will doubt. That is acceptable. The choice must be made freely or it means nothing. And if we refuse? Minji asked quietly. Then you leave unchanged. No punishment, no harm. We do not force anyone to walk this path. But know this, other species are rising in the galaxy. Some friendly, some hostile. The knowledge we offer could mean the difference between your species surviving or being conquered by those less kind. The crew looked at each other. They had trained for scientific discovery, not for tests by ancient aliens. They had expected to build a colony, not to become inheritors of lost technology. Everything had changed. How long do we have to decide? Taeyang asked. Time moves differently here, the voice said. Hours outside. Days within. You will have time to consider. The sphere dimmed slightly, giving them space to think. Taeyang gathered his crew in a circle. They sat on the smooth floor, looking tired but amazed. The sphere grew brighter as the crew made their decision to continue. The light surrounded them gently, not harsh or painful, but warm like sunlight on a spring morning. Taeyang felt knowledge flowing into his mind. Not just information, but understanding, history, purpose, truth. The architects had been ancient beyond measure. They had existed when the universe was young and stars were just beginning to form. They had built civilizations that spanned galaxies. They had mastered physics in ways that made current human science look like child's play. They could shape reality itself, but with all that power, they had learned the hardest lesson. Power alone meant nothing. We made mistakes, the voice said, and for the first time it sounded sad. We conquered. We controlled. We believed our way was the only way, and we nearly destroyed everything we had built. The sphere showed them images, wars that cracked planets, weapons that unraveled the fabric of space, entire star systems going dark as the architects fought among themselves over philosophy and control. We almost destroyed ourselves, the voice continued, but some of us learned. We chose differently. We abandoned conquest for compassion. We stopped taking and started giving, and we evolved. We became what you see now, beings of pure thought and energy, free from the needs and fears that drive flesh. Before we ascended, we built these facilities, hundreds of them scattered across the galaxy on worlds that could support life. We programmed them to wait, to test, to teach, because we knew other species would rise after us, and some of them would face the same choices we did. Suji spoke up, her scientific mind working through the implications. You're trying to guide galactic civilization, to prevent other species from making your mistakes. Yes, the voice agreed, but not through control. Through choice. Each species must choose for itself. must prove itself worthy, must understand that power without responsibility is poison. The trials continued over what felt like days, but might have been weeks inside the complex. Time had no meaning in this place. The crew faced a trial of wisdom. They were shown technology that could extend human lifespan indefinitely, but using it would require resources that could feed billions of hungry people. Choose to help the few who could afford it, or the many who needed basic survival. The crew chose to help the many. The voice approved. They faced a trial of sacrifice. They were given the choice to gain incredible personal power, or to ensure the knowledge would be shared with all humanity. Every crew member chose to share. The voice approved again. They faced a trial of violence. They were shown a scenario where a hostile alien species threatened Earth. They were given weapons that could destroy the aliens completely. But they chose instead to find diplomatic solutions, to understand rather than destroy. The voice seemed pleased. Through it all, the crew stayed together. They argued sometimes. Jiwon wanted more aggressive responses. Hanul wanted to study the technology more before making choices. Minji worried about the medical ethics of some decisions. But they listened to each other. They compromised. They found balance, then came the final trial. The sphere led them to a new chamber. This one was different from all the others. It felt more real, more solid, and in the center stood a pedestal with a single crystal resting on it. "This is the key," the voice said. "Take it and all the knowledge of the architects becomes yours. Medical technology to cure every disease, energy generation that could power your civilization forever, manufacturing techniques that could end poverty, transportation that makes the stars truly accessible. Everything we learned in millions of years, compressed into a form your minds can access." The crew stared at the crystal. It glowed softly, innocently. Such a small thing to hold so much power. But there is a cost, the voice warned. Not payment in suffering or sacrifice, but responsibility. Take this knowledge and you become shepherds. Guardians. When other young species reach for the stars, you must guide them. When they face their own choices between wisdom and destruction, you must help them choose wisely. "Why us?" Taeyang asked. "Humanity is still young, still violent. We fight wars over resources and beliefs. What makes you think we're ready for this?" "You are not ready," the voice said simply. "No species ever is. But you show potential. You came here seeking a home, not weapons. You faced our trials with cooperation, not competition. When given power, you chose to share it. When given choices, you chose compassion more often than cruelty." "That's not enough," Jiwon said harshly. "You've seen Earth's history. The wars, the genocides, the environmental destruction. We're not wise. We're barely getting by." "Precisely why you might succeed," the voice replied. "Species that think they are perfect become arrogant. They stop growing. But you know your flaws. You struggle with them daily. That humility could save you." Suji stepped closer to the crystal. "What happened to the species that failed the trials? You said 5 others were tested here. They took the knowledge without understanding the responsibility," the voice said. The sphere showed them images of worlds. Beautiful worlds that had become wastelands. One species used the medical technology to make their rulers immortal while the common people died. Another used the energy technology to build weapons that destroyed their enemies and themselves. A third used the manufacturing ability to create luxury while their planet choked on waste. "The knowledge itself is neutral," the voice continued, "but in hands that seek only power, it becomes poison. In hands that seek only profit, it becomes chains. In hands that seek balance and wisdom, it becomes hope." The crew stood in silence, staring at the crystal, each of them thinking about what it meant. The weight of the decision pressed down on them like gravity. "We need to talk about this," Taeyang said. "Privately. Just the crew." The sphere dimmed, giving them space. They sat in a circle again like they had done so many times during training. During the long years of travel and cryosleep, they had been more than crewmates. They had become family. "I think we should take it," Hanul said. "Think about what we could do for humanity. Cure cancer, end hunger, give everyone clean water and power. How can we refuse that?" "Because we might mess it up," Minji countered. "We're not perfect. What if we make the same mistakes those other species did?" "We're already making mistakes," Suji argued. "Earth is dying. Wars continue. People suffer. Maybe this knowledge is what we need to finally grow up as a species. Or maybe it's a test we should fail," Jiwon said. "Maybe the wise choice is to walk away." to let humanity develop on its own at its own pace without shortcuts. They debated for hours, every angle, every possibility, the risks, the rewards, the moral weight of accepting or refusing. Finally, Taeyang spoke. I think we need to vote, but not on whether to take the knowledge. On something else first. What? Yoonji asked. On whether we can ensure it's shared freely, not hoarded by governments or corporations, not used to create new classes of people who have access and people who don't. Can we guarantee that this knowledge will be for all humanity? That changed the conversation. They talked about structures, systems, safeguards, how to release the information in ways that couldn't be controlled, how to ensure no single group could monopolize it. We'd have to give it to everyone at once, Suji said. Scientists, universities, governments, public forums. Release everything simultaneously so no one can claim exclusive rights. We'd need agreements, Hanul added. International cooperation. Everyone has to agree that this belongs to humanity, not to nations. That's impossible, Jiwon said flatly. Countries will never agree to that. Then we make it possible, Taeyang said firmly. We make it a condition. Accept the knowledge only if they agree to share it freely. If they refuse, we keep it locked away until they're ready. It was ambitious, maybe impossible, but it felt right. They voted. Not anonymously, but openly, looking each other in the eyes. One by one, they chose to accept the knowledge, but only on their terms. Only with the promise to share it freely and equally. Only with the commitment to become shepherds, not masters. When the last vote was cast, the sphere brightened again. You have chosen wisely, the voice said, and it sounded proud. Not because you took the knowledge, but because you understood what taking it meant. You saw the danger as clearly as the benefit. You put conditions on your own power. That wisdom is what we hope to find. Taeyang approached the crystal. His hand shook slightly as he reached for it. Once you touch it, the knowledge will transfer. The voice warned. Not all at once. It will take time for your minds to absorb everything, but it will come. And with it, the responsibility. Are you certain? Taeyang looked back at his crew. They nodded one by one. He touched the crystal. Light exploded through his mind. Information flowed like a river. Mathematics, physics, biology, engineering, medicine, languages, art. The accumulated knowledge of a civilization that had existed for millions of years, compressed and translated into forms a human mind could eventually understand. It didn't hurt, but it was overwhelming. He felt his consciousness expanding, making room for knowledge he didn't even have words for yet. The crystal glowed brighter, and one by one, the other crew members touched it too. They stood together, hands on the crystal, as the inheritance of the architects flowed into them. Use it wisely, the voice said. The communication block dropped exactly 72 hours after it had started. Yoonji felt the change immediately in her equipment. Signals could reach Earth again. She looked at Captain Taeyang, waiting for orders. Taeyang stood at the entrance to the underground complex, staring up at the purple sky and the twin suns. Everything looked the same as it had 3 days ago, but everything was different. He was different. They all were. The knowledge sat in his mind like a vast library he was only beginning to explore. Every time he thought about a problem, solutions appeared. Engineering principles he had never studied. Medical techniques that didn't exist on Earth yet. Physics that rewrote what he thought was possible. It was beautiful and terrifying. Send the message, he told Yoonji. Tell Earth Command we're alive and we need to talk. Priority 1. Yoonji's fingers flew across her keyboard. The signal would take time to reach Earth, bouncing through space at the speed of light. But it would get there. And when it did, everything would change. On Earth, Commander Yuna had barely slept in 3 days. She sat at her station watching the static-filled screens when suddenly alarms began beeping. A signal, a real signal, not the broken fragments they had been receiving. Commander, we have a clear transmission from Kepler 442b, Hyun shouted. It's Captain Taeyang. Live feed. The main screen flickered and then cleared. Taeyang's face appeared, looking tired but alive. Behind him, the rest of the crew could be seen, all safe. Yuna felt relief wash over her like cool water. Captain Taeyang, report. What happened? Why did you go silent? Taeyang took a deep breath. Commander, I need you to assemble the full Earth Command Council, all department heads and representatives from every major nation. What I'm about to tell you can't be classified or kept secret. This concerns all of humanity. Yuna felt her stomach tighten. Captain, what did you find? We found the future, Taeyang said simply. We found first contact. Not with living aliens, but with their legacy, and we've been given a choice that will define what humanity becomes. It took 6 hours to assemble everyone. Government leaders, scientists, military commanders, philosophers, ethicists. They gathered in the main command center, faces on screens from around the world. All focused on the transmission from Kepler 442b, Taeyang began his report. He spoke calmly and clearly, explaining everything. The underground complex, the ancient architects, the trials, the tests of wisdom and character, the knowledge offered and the responsibility required. He showed them recordings of the chambers, the technology, the sphere of light. He explained how the communication block had been protective, not hostile. How the trials had tested humanity's worthiness to receive the inheritance of a civilization millions of years old. The world listened in stunned silence. The architects gave us access to knowledge that could transform human civilization, Taeyang continued. Medical technology that could cure diseases we thought incurable. Energy generation using principles we barely understand. Manufacturing techniques that could end scarcity. Transportation technology that makes traveling between stars practical, not just possible. He paused, letting that sink in. But this knowledge comes with conditions. We must share it freely with all humanity, not hoard it. We must use it to help others, not just ourselves. And we must become guardians. When other young species reach for the stars, we must help them make wise choices. The questions came like a flood. How could they verify this wasn't a hallucination? How could they be sure the technology was safe? What if other nations refused to cooperate? What if the knowledge was used for weapons? Taeyang answered each question patiently. He transmitted data files containing the beginning fragments of the knowledge, mathematical proofs that solved problems humanity had struggled with for decades, medical scans showing techniques that seemed impossible but worked, energy readings that defied current physics. Dr. Nari downloaded the medical data and started analyzing it immediately. Her hand shook as she realized what she was seeing. "This is real," she whispered. "This cure for cellular degeneration, it's real. We could eliminate aging. We could save billions of lives." Other scientists around the world confirmed it. The mathematics checked out. The physics, though strange, followed consistent rules. This wasn't fiction or delusion. This was real knowledge from a real alien civilization. Admiral Doyen spoke up, his voice hard. "Captain, you broke protocol. You explored without authorization. You made contact with alien intelligence without clearance. You put your crew at risk. How do you justify that?" Taeyang met his eyes through the screen. "I don't justify it, Admiral. I made a choice based on what I thought was best for my crew and humanity. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe I should be court-martialed when I return. But I stand by the decision. If I had waited for authorization, we might have lost this opportunity forever." Yuna watched the exchange carefully. She understood Taeyang's choice even if she couldn't officially approve of it. Sometimes the moment demanded action, not permission. The debate went on for hours. Some leaders wanted to keep the knowledge secret, study it slowly, control its release. Others wanted to use it to gain advantage over rival nations. A few wanted to reject it entirely, fearing humanity wasn't ready. But Taeyang stood firm. The architects were clear. This knowledge belongs to everyone or to no one. If we try to hoard it, we fail the test. We become like the species that destroyed themselves with greed and fear. I won't let that happen. Dr. Suji stepped forward on the transmission. "We've already decided. 6 of us are staying here on Kepler 442b. We'll establish a permanent base. We'll study the complex. We'll continue learning from the architect's legacy. But the knowledge we gain will be transmitted to Earth continuously, publicly for everyone." Hanul nodded. "I'm staying too. This technology is incredible. Someone needs to understand it properly, document it, teach others. That's going to be our job." On Earth, the debate shifted. If part of the crew was staying, this wasn't just about accepting knowledge. This was about establishing humanity's first real colony on another world. About taking a permanent step into the galaxy. The political pressure was enormous, but slowly agreements were reached. International treaties were drafted. Committees were formed. Safeguards were established. It wasn't perfect and it would take years to implement properly, but a framework emerged. The knowledge would be released gradually, starting with medical technology and clean energy. It would be made available through universities and research institutions worldwide, not through governments or corporations. Patents would be forbidden on any technology derived from the architect's knowledge. It belonged to humanity as a species, not to individuals or nations. Weeks passed. The crew on Kepler 442b worked with Earth Command to begin the first transmissions. Medical information that could save millions of lives. Energy technology that could stop climate change. Agricultural techniques that could end hunger. Scientists around the world verified each piece of knowledge before it was released publicly. The verification process was slow but thorough. Every claim was tested. Every technique was proven. And piece by piece, humanity's understanding of the universe expanded. Not everyone was happy. Some powerful people lost profits as free energy technology spread. Some governments struggled with reduced control as information flowed freely. There were protests, conflicts, resistance, but the knowledge kept spreading because it was too valuable to suppress. A cancer patient in Brazil could access the same treatment as a billionaire in New York. A farmer in Kenya could use the same agricultural technology as a corporation in America. The information belonged to everyone. Taeyang prepared for the long journey home. The Resilience would carry most of the crew back to Earth, leaving 6 volunteers on Kepler 442b to maintain the colony and continue research. Before he left, he stood at the entrance to the underground complex one last time. The sphere of light appeared, fainter now but still present. "You have done well," the voice said. "Better than we hoped. Your species faces challenges ahead. The knowledge will cause disruptions. Change always does. But you have started on a good path. Will we ever meet you?" Taeyang asked. "The real you, not just this programmed intelligence?" "Perhaps," the voice said. "We exist in spaces between spaces now. But we watch. We guide where we can. And when your species is ready, truly ready, we may show ourselves fully. For now, know that you are not alone in the universe. You never were. You never will be." The sphere faded for the last time, and Taeyang returned to his ship. The journey back to Earth took 5 years, the crew sleeping in cryosleep while the ship carried them across the vast distances between stars. But now they knew the journey wouldn't always take so long. The architect's knowledge included propulsion technology that could cut the travel time to months. Ships were already being designed to use it. When Taeyang finally woke from cryosleep and saw Earth growing larger in the windows, he felt a mix of emotions. Relief to be home. Pride in what they had accomplished. Fear about whether humanity would use the knowledge wisely. The Resilience entered orbit to cheers and celebrations.